Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Travis, and welcome to another episode of Ink Play Pass, a Disney Lorcana podcast. So glad that you could be here to join us for another week. If you're new here, you can follow us over on Instagram at Ink Play Pass, or like, subscribe, do all the things you do here on YouTube to keep up with brand new episodes. We have lots to cover this week. We're going to be looking at a potential new gameplay mechanic coming in the next set of Lorcana, Whispers in the Well. We're also going to look back at some of the major tournaments that took place last weekend and try to get some sort of insight into what the new meta is shaping up to be. And then finally, I'm going to break down one of the decks that I've been practicing with and play testing to see if it can possibly be effective, as we are less than a month away from set champs and Disney Lorcana challenges and all of those things. So stick around and let's get into it. All right, so first up, we are looking at some brand new images that were released this week from the next episode. Yes, we just got Fabled. I know it's still very fresh on everybody's minds, but Whispers in the Well is only really like 2 months away, and the product images have been released. And with that, we're starting to get a glimpse at some new cards that include a brand new gameplay mechanic as well. If you look at the images of the single player decks that were released, they have some images of new cards on the sides of them, and these appear to be the new Whisper cards. These Whisper cards have a little bit of a different look stylistically. They look like character cards, but the borders are a little bit different. They look more like tattered paper. They have kind of like a gold tan border around them. And the characters that we're seeing, there's a Simba character, a Meg character. I think there's a Robin Hood as well. Really cool looking artwork, but something that really caught my eye is this new boost mechanic that we're seeing on some of these Whisper cards. And the images are kind of hard to see, but from what we can tell, it looks like the boost is an ability that allows you to, once per turn, pay a specific ink cost and take the top card of your deck and place it face down under that card. So a little bit of mystery about, what card you're losing, sort of like some of those ramp cards from Sapphire that allow you to put the top card of your deck into your inkwell. Except now, instead of putting it into your inkwell, we're putting these cards underneath one of these characters. But when we do that boost, it unlocks a new ability for the character. So as an example, let's look at the Simba card, right? This has a boost 3. And what that means is once per turn, you can pay 3 ink to put the top card of your deck face down under this card. When you do the boost, or not when you do it, but whenever you put a card under that character, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card, play it for free. It enters play exerted. If it's not a character, put it on the bottom of your deck. So considering that you have to pay 3 for the boost, it's an opportunity to play a character for free. Not really for free, but for the 3 ink from the top of your deck. I don't know, it puts a lot of risk in there, especially if you're in a deck that possibly runs some actions. Are these Whisper cards going to count as characters? A lot of things that are unknown, but it's kind of fun to speculate about, kind of interesting to see what these boost abilities are actually going to be. The Simba one is a boost 3, which means you have to pay 3 ink, but there's other boost abilities that only cost 1. So different levels to it. And I'm interested to see how it plays out, if there are going to be some really strong Whisper cards that maybe enhance people's decks or potentially even see competitive play. So that's what we know about Whispers in the Well and the potential new Whisper cards. I think they're pretty cool, but let us know what you think. Leave a comment. Is this something that you're excited about for Whispers in the Well? All right, next up, let's take a closer look at some of the major tournaments that took place over the first week of Fabled and see what decks are getting the most play at these tournaments. First up, we are going to go out to the Ink Open. This was a pretty large event. Had 226 players. Lot of popular casters and such were out there for this event. And yeah, unfortunately, looking at the top 8 from the main 10K event, not a ton of diversity in the metagame, with the top 8 really only having 2 types of decks: a Blurple Dumbo focused deck, Dumbo being one of the most exciting new cards being played out of Fable, and then really almost a carryover from the last set, and an Amber Steel aggro deck that can hit the ground a little bit faster and get you lore really quickly. These 2 decks together are, I mean, I'm not surprised that they had a lot of success. The Amethyst decks are providing you a ton of card advantage, so many opportunities to draw, whether that's with Dumbo, Genie, even like Kuzco's Diablo. So many ways to get more cards in your hand, which is definitely going to be a benefit when you're playing a card game. But also those decks relying on ramp, whether it be Tipo, Sail the Azurite Sea, that ramp process giving these Amber Steel decks a little bit of time to get a lot of characters on board, high questing characters that can really win the game very quickly, while these Blurple decks are taking their time to set up. So yeah, aggro Amber Steel ended up winning the whole tournament. But yeah, really between, Blurple, Amethyst Steel, that makes up over 50% of the metagame. Amber Steel really only about 11% for this tournament, and then just a ton of other combinations. But I think Amethyst is gonna be popular in this set. With Dumbo, with all of the card draw, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it's one of the most reliable ways to get cards, which is a really great strategy as you're coming into a brand new meta post rotation. And I mean, it was one of the first things I built. I built Blurple immediately. Then I built Amber Steel, and then my son Caleb built Amethyst Steel, and I was like, well, that's like all the Amethyst cards that we have, so let's come up with some other options. But yeah, really great event. Lot of different combinations in the ink colors, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, you have some of your core cards that you're going to see across all of the decks, but like with the Amber Steel, we definitely lost some of the staple cards that people were running in the previous set, and now people are kind of experimenting. I'm playing an Amber Steel deck right now that has Fire the Cannons, Captain Hooks, Smash is in there to deal with the Dumbos if necessary. But there's Calhoun's different cards that I wouldn't necessarily think of as an aggro card, but they're cards that allow you to interact with your opponent's board, slow them down a little bit while you build up those characters, those high questing characters, and then allow you to quest quickly. Throw a Tiana out there, protect your characters, and yeah, it's been working pretty well. So interested to see as we move into this next week, does this continue, or will people be running something different? Moving on from Ink, there was another huge tournament out at Charlie's Collectibles Show. This was the CCS Lorcana Invitational. There was a 5K on Sunday, and interestingly, Blurple still a major deck in this competition, but then Amber Emerald and Amber Steel, making up about 40% of the meta here. So yeah, still Blurple, Amber Steel, and then Emerald Sapphire and Amethyst Steel. This looks like this was their Sunday, sort of like their top cut. This is the invitational qualifier, and only 5 different types of ink combinations there. Blurple was almost all the Dumbo, a couple of aggro decks. There was there was a couple of decks running the Emerald Sapphire kind of control, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we get into the deck focus that for the deck that I've been running over the last week. But yeah, again, really not a ton of diversity in the first weekend, but I think that's okay. I think as people learn what cards are going to be effective, what cards we're left with post-rotation, and they start to experiment with those different combinations, the better decks will rise to the top. And I think people will also be cooking on alternatives to Blurple or aggro that directly counter those decks. Will Ruby have any shot in this new meta? It's possible. There's some really challenge-heavy decks. I've seen some decks that sort of like a Ruby Amethyst that really focuses on moving damage counters around, which is a great way to get around evasive as well, which a lot of the Amethyst decks are running. So yeah, I think other decks will come in that directly challenge these kind of immediate decks that people are focusing on. All right, so looking ahead to Denver this weekend, the Pro Play Summit, there is a 15K Lorcana qualifier. This is the first event that will actually allow players to qualify for the North American Championship. Basically what you would get if you went through the DLCs, but now a separate tournament from the DLCs. This looks like it's going to be a phenomenal event. Lots of players turning out for it. Core constructed, top cut to 16, and then yeah, first place gets $4,000. The convention playmat and an invite to the North American Championship, as well as that non-foil Elsa Ice Maker promo. And I think that's really interesting. This is also one of those first tournaments where we're going to see some of that Ravensburger supported prize support that a lot of folks look forward to at the Disney Lorcana Challenges. But we're going to get non-foils, so not quite the same things you'll get if you go to a DLC, but still prize walls and some prizes for folks that they're going to be able to walk away with some really cool exclusive promos and things like that from this tournament. This tournament, the last two, like, and that first weekend, important for kind of setting the stage for the meta, but I really feel like this tournament is going to have a lot of really competitive players. They're going to be bringing their A game, so I'm really interested in paying attention to what the meta for this tournament looks like and getting a sense for what works really well for them and maybe what decks are not as successful. So we'll be staying tuned for that, and we will break down some of the best decks on our next episode. All right, before we get into the deck profile, just a couple of late-breaking updates that came out today. There was a brand new release to the official tournament rules for Disney Lorcana, and most of it is stuff that we already know, laying out the details between core constructed and the Infinity formats. But one thing that really stood out was that altered cards are no longer approved for competitive tournament play. So if you have a signed card, an autographed card, those are still legal, so long as the autograph doesn't alter the artwork of the card at all. And I think that's really interesting. So if you have an artist or somebody from Lorcana that signs your card, even I guess if you have like a cast member at one of the theme parks, sign it. Not a problem. You can still play that card. The problem is if they start drawing on the card, altering the artwork, changing what the artwork looks like, those cards are no longer allowed to be played in competitive tournaments. The other main thing that stood out to me was the use of electronic devices. And so for about as long as competitive Lorcana has been around, you have not, and really the Lorcana app has been out for most of that time. There's lore counters in that app, but you have not been allowed to use those in competitive play. This rule changes that. You can now use iPads, phones, things like that to mark your lore, to track your lore, so long as those devices are visible to both players, so that you're not taking notes or doing something or getting any information on those devices that would be breaking any other rules. But if you're using it as a lore counter or something like that, and it's visible to both players and any judges that you have, it appears that those are now allowed in competitive play. Other details. I mean, there were some other things that came out in the new rules, but for me, those are the two things that really stand out. I think most competitive players are going to still stick to keeping score by hand, just because it gives you that kind of record of the changes in the lore, so that if there is any discrepancy or disagreement between the players, you can at least show what you have, compare it to your opponent. But I don't know, do you think you're going to start using your phone or some other type of electronic device to play Lorcana? I don't know. I might for some casual games, but when it comes down to a tournament, I'll probably stick to either like a raceable little boogie board or just pen and paper. So, all right, let's jump into our deck profile for this week. Okay, so this is the deck that I have been using in some of my playtesting this week. I gotta say it's been a lot of fun. The inspiration for this actually came from Zan, who was playing at the CCS event over the weekend. Watched a match between Zan Saeed and Zach Bivens, and Zan actually ended up winning that match against Zach. Zach was playing an Amber Steel deck, and some of the combinations in this deck really stood out to me as interesting. My past is like a Ruby Amethyst player. I've played a lot of Ruby decks, and the loss of Be Prepared, the loss of a board wipe, I'm still recovering from a little bit. It's been a challenge. So when rotation started, the Emerald decks were really appealing to me because of the Under the Sea card. Yes, it is an 8-cost uninkable. You can sing together with your characters, but this was a card that had the potential, especially against some of those Amber Steel aggro decks, to really remove a lot of characters from the board and then allow you to start building up your side and questing and things like that. And so this uses that card as well as some other interesting cards to really kind of swing the momentum in your favor. So starting off with the 1-drops, you have Clarabelle, Clumsy Guest, Basil, the Practice Detective, and that's it. Just 2 1-drops. Clarabelle, you're really not trying to use her Butterfingers ability, especially if you're playing it on turn 1, because you don't have the extra ink to banish any items. And frankly, people really aren't playing a ton of items right now. But if you do encounter an item deck or somebody that's running some sort of unique item, this is a way to deal with that as well later in the game. And then with Basil, his support, yes, he's a 2/1, but adding that 2 additional strength to another character can be really beneficial, especially early in the game, to knock out some of those higher willpower characters. while keeping Basil on the board for an additional turn. Moving into our 2-drops, Tipo. I mean, we're running Sapphire. We're going to be ramping. We're going to be trying to get our ink. Tipo and Sail the Azurite Sea are musts for this, as well as Vision of the Future as a way to dig into our deck a little bit further and find those specific tools that we're needing to get the deck in a position that we want. But yeah, those are the 2-drops. And then moving into our 3-drops, Clarabelle, Contented Wallflower. Yeah, another Clarabelle. If you can guess where we're going with this, right? We're creating those shift targets early in the game so that we can shift Clarabelle Light on her hooves early in the game. Whether you get Clarabelle out on turn 1 or maybe save that 1-drop Clarabelle for after the ramp, get Clarabelle out. Really, you want to have a Clarabelle. It doesn't matter which one, out on the field by turn 4 so that you can then shift Clarabelle and start drawing back some of the cards from your hand. So if you're inking, you're ramping, you're using a lot of cards, get Clarabelle out quickly, start refilling that hand. It's especially when you're playing like Blurple or anybody that is playing Amethyst, drawing a lot of cards. This is a great way to take advantage of the fact that they have a lot of cards in their hand and kind of level the playing field as well. Moving on, with that in mind, having cards in your opponent's hand is not necessarily a bad thing. So we also have Donald Duck Perfect Gentleman. This is a card that sat in my trove and in my binders for a long time pre-rotation because I didn't really ever see a benefit to having it. But now, if I'm playing this card and have Clarabelle out, yeah, by all means, my opponent can draw an additional card because that just is another card that I'm going to get to draw at the end of my turn when I have Clarabelle. Sticking it in the Duck/McDuck family, we also have the 4-cost Uninkable Scrooge McDuck, 5/5 Quest for 2. This is just a really strong card to deal with some of those threats. Take out some of those higher willpower characters that have low strength, like a Daisy, even potentially challenging through an exerted Tiana to be able to still take out some of those other characters. Really great card, and with that, then we have Baymax, the giant robot with his universal shift ability. Yes, 6-cost uninkable, but you can pay 4-cost at almost any time so long as you have a character on field, heal all the damage off a character, and then have another 5/5 Quest for 2. Super useful, and I mean, turning like that 1-drop Basil into a 5/5 2-quester, it's pretty solid. It feels really good. We skipped a few songs. We'll get to the songs at the end, but rounding out our characters, we do have 4 copies of the 6-cost inkable John Silver Alien Pirate. When another 5/5 Quest for 2, but when you play the character and when he quests, you can give a chosen opposing character Reckless. This is a great way to get some of those characters, especially the evasive characters that you may not be able to interact with directly. They requiring those characters to challenge. Having characters like Scrooge McDuck, Baymax, and John Silver exerted and available to be challenged, most of those cards are going to survive those interactions while your opponent is losing those characters. So works out pretty great. Last couple characters here, we have another Basil, the Undercover Detective. When you play this character, you may return chosen character to their player's hand, and then whenever he quests, chosen opponent discards a card at random. Especially late in the game, this is the 7-drop. He doesn't have shift, so he doesn't really interact with the 1-drop Basil, but yeah, a 5/4 that questing makes your opponent discard cards. Yeah, and coming out, you can send a card back to their hand as well. So just a little bit of a great card to help deal with their deck as well. And then finally, Clarabelle. We have the big Clarabelle. She's awesome for drawing cards, and there's a lot of great interactions that she has because she's a 7 cost. If you have her and any other character, you can immediately sing Under the Sea, which really, if you, let's say, play Tipo on turn 2 so you can get that ramp, Clarabelle on turn 3, you shift Clarabelle on turn 4, those 2 characters can wipe all of the 2 strength characters off the board, and really kind of slow your opponent down. Another song that we have in here is the 6 cost Inkable Heads Held High. This is a sing together 6, which removes up to 3 damage from any number of chosen characters. So basically can heal all of your characters if you'd like. And then all opposing characters get -3 strength this turn. This combo, I've been able to use it a couple of times. Situations where I'm sitting at 6 ink, I can pay the 6 ink to play this card and then use characters to sing Under the Sea. Dropping, I mean, I played against my son. He was using an Amethyst Steel deck. He had a very wide board, and I was able to play these 2 cards together, completely wipe his board, wiped a Tinkerbell Giant Fairy off the board with Under the Sea, and then really he's left with very few cards in his hand because he's been playing a lot of characters, and now I have Clarabelle out there and some other high-cost characters that can start gaining me the lore. So it doesn't always work, but it works enough that for me it's worth keeping in the deck. Another song, the 4 cost You're Welcome. Shuffle chosen character, item, or location into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. The way I've been using this is actually allowing my opponent to put something back in their deck and draw 2 cards, because if I have that Clarabelle out, I am also going to draw the 2 cards. So I'm not really at a disadvantage or losing card advantage. It's actually providing an option for me to draw more cards. It also works if I'm trying to just draw cards for myself if I don't have the Clarabelle, so there's a little bit of flexibility there. And then finally, Mother Knows Best, the 3 cost Uninkable Song. Return chosen character to their player's hand. This is great. You can sing it, send one of their characters back to their hand, and then maybe quest with Basil, potentially have them discard it, or them just having that additional card in their hand, especially if you choose a shifted character. Now you're drawing an additional 2 cards at the end of the turn with Clarabelle. So that is the deck, and yeah, it's I plan on bringing it into my locals over the next weekend, testing it a little bit more with some other folks. But in the testing I've done so far, I've had a lot of fun with it, and it's worked pretty well. So let me know what you think. Have you tried a deck with this color combination, the Baja Blast? What do you like? What do you not like? And yeah, let us know in the comments. All right, so that is it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Again, you can subscribe, like this video if you've gotten this far, and then head over to Instagram, Inkplay Pass on Instagram, where you can follow us throughout the week and get additional updates. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Travis, and until next time, have a great week.